Joan Quinn, a member of the California Arts Council and Beverly Hills Arts Commission, is the former West Coast editor of Andy Warhol's Interview magazine and society editor of the Herald Examiner. Her cover stories can be read in Venice and Detour magazines, and she is a contributing editor to California Apparel News. For the next half hour, Joan will bring you inside news and views on society, art, film, and the exhilarating worlds of these multifaceted people. Here is Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to Joan Quinn, Etc. We're always so happy to have you watching us, no matter what part of the country you're in. We have a great show for you today, and it's all about women, 3 women to be exact. Author Elizabeth Long, Queen Isabella, that she will tell us about, who she'll tell us about, and designer Vicky Tiel. Vicky Tiel lives most of the time in Paris, but we were lucky to catch her in her showroom in New York recently. You'll see how busy the showroom is. You'll hear phones ringing, and we're distracted a little bit, but watch the interview because I think you'll really like it. She's very interesting. Here's Vicky Tiel. Hi. We're in New York on the 45th floor in the Art Deco showroom of designer Vicky Tiel. Hi, Vicky.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Is this building swaying? I've never been quite so high.
No, it's just me.
Tell us about your life from the beginning to dress designer days.
Oh, gee, well, the most exciting thing, I think, was that I started selling dresses when I was 12. That was my first sale. And I've been selling dresses for over 20-some years. So
did you make your first dress?
Yes, I started sewing at 12, and I realized that I could sew it and sell it, and I never stopped.
Are you American?
I was born in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and I've been living in France since the mid-60s.
So you must be fluent in your French.
French, Italian, German, whatever it takes, bonjour.
How did you decide to go to Europe and live?
I went to Parsons Fashion School in New York City, and they had a summer school program in Paris. And the bus dropped us off in Saint-Germain-des-Prés, and I sat down in a cafe, and I looked at all the gorgeous guys, and I said, I'm never leaving this spot.
So you've been there ever since?
Yeah.
How did you start a business there? I mean, that is the capital of couture and of clothes.
Well, I went to Paris with a girl that I went to school with, and she immediately married one of Paris's leading couturiers, Louis Farreau, and I ended up marrying Elizabeth Taylor's makeup man. So within 6 months, we both had husbands, and our husbands helped us get started.
That is a dream story.
Yeah.
Did you start with a showroom, or what did you do?
Well, Louis Farreau had a couture house of 5 floors on the Faubourg Saint-Honoré, and so he gave us 2 or 3 little rooms to start sewing and gave us some sewers, and we started making mini skirts, and we actually showed mini skirts in Louis Farreau's fashion show in the mid-60s.
So it's come full circle. You're making mini skirts
How about
again?
full circle and circle and circle? About every 7 years, fashion has a cycle. So.
Who was your partner at the time?
Mia Fonsa-Greaves.
And the name of the company was?
We were called Mia and Vicky.
Is that what? And now it's?
Now it's Vicky Tiel since 1971. She and Farreau divorced, and I inherited the company and all the sewers, and I've maintained a business since then myself.
Is it hard working in Europe? What would the pitfalls be? I mean, you've worked there for so long,
but working is hard.
What
everywhere.
would the pitfalls be against working in the United States, say?
I think you have to overcome the language. I think to get along with the people in a foreign country, you have to learn the language, and that took me about 4 or 5 years to really be fluent in French. And once I'd made the effort to speak French well, it might as well stay. So.
What about the style or the background of the people? Do you feel that that it's a problem, that there are things that they might say to you that you don't understand because you have a different...
Oh, there's things that Americans say that I don't understand. I think the language of artists are the same, the sewers are the same. The words in sewing are often French, even in American terms. So we sewers and fashion people, we're all in a world of our own. I think we're pretty much related between whatever country we're in.
What do you see the trends are in the fashion world right now?
Well, skirts go up and skirts go down and skirts go around and backwards and open and closed. I think that right now women are too, the world of communication is very small. Something that happens in Japan or in Australia happens at the same time it's written about in Women's Wear Daily. I think that there's no such thing as a trend. women hear everything that's going on, and we want everything. So no one can have the power over the world. The world of media is too tiny. We'll wear a long skirt, a short skirt, shorts. We'll look like a man one day. We'll look like a woman the next day. I think that women want all these choices.
Are women able to interpret all those things or feel confident enough, or do they need designers like you to tell them what to do?
Well, I'm supposed to dress them for seduction.
I
I have my niche, and that's seduction.
So what kind of clientele do you have then?
Seductresses.
That sounds pretty good. The dress you're wearing and these dresses behind us.
Yes, I have a particular thing in common. I think women throughout the board, whatever nationality they are, they're women who like men. They're women who like men and who need men in their life. And I hope that through my clothes they'll enhance themselves and enough to become desirable to men.
Do you think there's any type of backlash with the women's lib?
That means more men for us.
I think you've done a good job in that. Explain a little bit of a Vicky Tiel dress. There are 3 of them here.
Well, there's something about it. I think the most important thing to say is that it fits your body. My clothes have never really changed. From the earliest part of my career to today, my dress has a fitted waist, it's fitted under the bust. It enhances your body. It often has built-in bones to make your body look better. And
so
a woman today at lunch told me that whenever she wears my dress, whenever she puts it on, her husband says, "You look 10 years younger."
So that's seductress dressing. I think maybe they don't look at anything else once they see all these fitted and curved things. Do you use certain types of fabrics?
Expensive. I love
And from
expensive
where?
fabrics. Like the jacket you're wearing, this is a bianchini silk. It has about 11 colors in the print, which is as many as colors as you can possibly use in a print.
Do you design the prints?
No, I don't. Most of my prints are from the greatest French houses that make couture, and I use their fabrics, and they're almost all silk or pure wool, pure cotton.
But they would be exclusively for you. You wouldn't
Yes,
see.
yes. I don't design them, but when I have the fabric, it should be mine.
Do you do a lot of beading? I see there's not an abundance, but
this is beaded on lace. I like to work with the great French lace houses. This is a Calais lace and Chantilly, and I embroider the laces. But the French make the world's greatest lace, and I like to use lace.
Do they design the lace for you, or do you have a say-so?
We work together, and the size of the lace and the colors.
So this piece behind me is designed especially for you.
And that color is a nude color that we especially designed so that when you put it on, it's the color of your skin. That's the new look this year, is skin-colored lace.
Do you have accessories? Do you design accessories so that you can put together a whole look?
I've not done accessories. Right now I do a perfume, and the perfume is the ultimate accessory for my collections this year.
The perfume is beautiful.
Yes.
The bottle is beautiful.
Yes. It's a sculpted woman's body going around the bottle, and I'm very proud of it. And the fragrance has 5 aphrodisiacs in it.
And what do you call it?
Vicky Tiel.
And it looks like part of the ambiance of what you collect and what you do. How did you get to design that bottle?
I collect art glass, and I've been collecting art glass for many years. Art Deco glass, Art Nouveau glass, and my inspiration was Lalique. I think that the Lalique glass is very beautiful, and the color is the color of the Caribbean Sea.
But it looks also like a seashell. You've combined many things. The top looks...
I have a home in the beach, and I have a love of the Caribbean, and so I like the color blue of the Caribbean.
Well, how do you find time to be in Paris, to be in New York? When are you in New York usually?
I spend a week a month in New York.
Oh, you do? And do you ever design when you're here?
No, I design in my vacation home. I only draw there.
And do you do all the drawings yourself?
Yes, yes.
And what other inspirations besides the seductive woman and the beach? Do you have any other?
Oh, I think the women of the great history of Hollywood, of all the actresses. I especially like Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn, and some of the way that they looked, Vivian Leigh in the films.
Did you design for films? Have you ever designed?
Yes.
Oh, well, tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, my first job when I was 19 was the film What's New Pussycat, I did some James Bond movies. I worked with Elizabeth Taylor. I worked with Kim Novak and some of the stars in the early days when I was very young.
Very young.
Yes.
And then did you dress them only for the film, or did you dress them afterwards as well?
Afterwards. Now we still dress many actresses.
Have you done any stage work?
No. No.
Have you ever thought of
No.
doing? No. What
No.
about ballet or nothing?
No, just the movies. Yeah.
What would you see Vicky Tiel doing in 15 or 20 years? Say?
Oh, I think everything to do with seduction. I'd like to do a line of bedding, lingerie, working in the world of seduction. Everything to do with the boudoir, the bathroom, your love life.
Have you written any books?
about to.
Are you?
Yes, very interested in female love life.
And what would it be? Documentation?
Perhaps.
Tell us a little bit. What do you have in mind?
Well, when a woman takes her clothes off, she tells me all her secrets in a dressing room.
Is that right?
Yes.
Ah, so you have a lot of notes then.
Yes.
You've been doing it for a long time.
Yes.
We're going to leave you.
Okay.
But we're going to look for your book.
Okay.
We're going to look for all the things that you've talked about. Give us one little Vicky Tiel secret that no one knows.
Oh, a secret
Yes.
that no one knows?
Uh-huh.
I think a woman should learn to spend as much time as she can at home and in bed.
And with that, we'll leave. Thanks for being with us on Joan Quinn, etc. She said yes, the woman should spend a lot of time in bed, and she really made us laugh. But the thing with Vicky is the minute the tape stopped rolling and the cameras were turned off, she started going into a lot of girl talk. So one thing we wanted to show you were the photographs that she had in the showroom, Farrah Fawcett and Ryan O'Neal. These were on the wall. She loaned them to us. And a great picture of Christy Brinkley. And when we come back from the break, we're going to hear about another wonderful woman, Queen Isabella of Spain. And Elizabeth Long is here to tell us all about it. So don't go away. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to Joan Quinn, etc. Author Elizabeth Long, who was born in Nebraska, realized at an early age that she had a gift for writing. As time progressed, she followed a spiritual calling and graduated from California Christian University. She enjoyed great success teaching and lecturing on the international circuit. And then, with the quincentenary of Columbus approaching, she became very interested in his patron, Queen Isabella. She became so interested that she wrote a book, Isabella, the First Lady of the Renaissance. When did you start writing that book, Elizabeth?
I started my research in 1986 when I discovered that they were going to be having this quincentenary celebration in 1992.
Was that enough time, 1986?
Well, you have 6 years, and there is a lot of material if you really know where how to dig for it. The information is available but you have to go to, shall we say, bicycle it around to many libraries in the United States to get the whole picture.
Where did you? Did you go to Spain?
Yes, I spent 3 months in Spain.
Was that enough?
Really, yes, I guess it was, but you know, Spain is such a lovely, lovely country that sometimes you hate to leave.
Do you speak Spanish?
No, I didn't.
Well, how'd you get along?
There was enough people who understood my English, and sometimes I had a Berlitz little book on Spanish, and if I couldn't express it, I would write it out and tell them what I needed.
Did that have anything to do, the Spanish part of it, with the title Isabella on your book it's spelled with a Y.
Yes.
And we're used to spelling it with an I think.
The whole world spells it with an I. But Isabella was a woman who really moved through mountains of changes. And one of the things she did was she conformed the Spanish language. And at the time, in her era and time, Isabella was spelled with a Y, and all of her official documents are spelled with a Y. So I decided that I wanted my book to be different. I wanted it to be hers, her story. And I thought, why not use her name, the name that she signed on the document. She signed the documents Y, Trastamara, Queen, and then there was a Y for Anne, for those who speak Spanish.
Right.
And then beneath that was Ferdinand of Aragon.
So he was kind of secondary.
Oh, yes, indeed. I mean, and that was the way the official documents all signed. But she always wanted to make him feel as though he was very important. So when the official documents were brought to her, they'd hand them to her, and she'd say, "My Lord, the King." And so he would sign on the second line, hand it to her, then she would sign on the top line and put her seal and officialize it. But that's the way it was.
So she was a smart woman.
She controlled.
She
was the queen. She had the power,
but she knew what to do with it.
She made him feel important.
And she needed him.
Yes, she did. In many ways, she could not have accomplished all she had accomplished. Because, you know, sometimes when you have to mete out, shall we say, tough sentences for murderers and thieves and rapists, Ferdinand went that route, and he sometimes made some of those decisions which didn't fall upon her shoulders to do.
How did you get so involved from the point of just like 1986? It doesn't seem like it was a lifetime involvement with you.
No. You see, when I started my research, little glimmers here and little glimmers there, and a piece of information in this book, and I started my notes, and I saw this woman. If I put it on the screen and I fast forwarded from 500 years ago today, I would say she is the woman of 1992, because all of the things that she was involved in, all of the problems with which she was confronted with. She had a mother who was mentally ill all of her life. I mean, from the time she was little. She had a daughter that was very belligerent and stubborn, and she never got along with her.
Is that right?
She had a husband who strayed from, you know, he was...
Oh, he did as well.
He was a playboy.
Oh.
And so she had the same kind of problems that women have today.
Did you find when you were doing the research any kind of eerie things that kept cropping up or that happened to you?
I'll tell you, as I began to formulate and put all this information together and try to kind of decide, well, now how should we write it? How should this come about so that people can get to know her? And then all of a sudden it came to me, I mean, if I do it in first person, I can take the people back into her lives, and with all of the documentation and all of the research, they can really understand the life and times 500 years ago at this time. And it just seemed as though, you know, every great actor sort of says that they sort of immerse themselves into their character. It just seemed as though that I was able to intertwine my thoughts and my writing with Isabella's.
Well, I noticed when you write it, it's like a diary. Did the Queen keep a diary?
No, she didn't. But she wrote so much, and so many things happened that as it came out looking like a diary, I thought, well, I didn't mean it that way. But as you go through it, it is though that I had discovered, opened up this trunk here and found all of these pieces of paper, and I fitted them all together, and I thought, my goodness, that's her diary.
How did you feel comfortable telling the story of the Queen? I mean, you're not the Queen, and
No.
you talk, I did this and I did that, all the way through, and you project her feelings.
I projected myself. I was able to, I'm a meditator, and so sometimes when we sort of tune in, and we learn to tune in, and it was just sort of an automatic process when I would sit down to my typewriter and my word processor, that the words flowed, and they flowed so well that many times you didn't have to rewrite it or change it.
I mean, you felt like it was just coming?
It just came from, you know, I had the story so well in my mind, and my notes so organized, but then everything just flowed so beautifully. It is like sometimes some of the sentences sort of read like they do take you back 500 years ago, but it is because some of those sentences, the way that they're phrased, isn't what a modern day author would write.
No, some of them were like that, and yet I felt like somewhere around page 378, you said something about he was bubbling over with joy, and I thought, well, this sounds like Elizabeth talking now, not the Queen.
Once in a while, you know, as every great author will kind of get sometimes their personality and times and era of in, and it sometimes weaves itself in whether we mean it to or not.
You were a little intertwined there.
A little bit intertwined, right.
I think you avoided my question about any eerie things happening during that time, because you did have to open up a lot of documents. Were there any like realizations?
I'll tell you, it was really the Cathedral at Granada. They have the museum there of her jewel box and of her crown and of her scepter, and then of course these beautiful statues of her, and then of course is the sepulchres in front of the altar. And I don't know, for some reason or other, when I walked into that historical place, and then as I walked through the Alhambra, it just seemed as though that it was so right for Isabella to have made these accomplishments for Castile. And for being a woman myself of the 1990s, I thought for all of the things that she accomplished, I was so proud. And for me to then be able to sit down and write this book and sort of just bring it all out, I just, to me.
So it just kind of jumped out at you? It just
jumped out at me as something that you have to do.
I see. You call it's a documentation, really, is how I felt it was, and yet you call it a novelization.
Well, because her life and all of the things that happened in it is just like any great novelist, of Margaret Mitchell or any other great novelist today. All of the things that actually happened in her life were so dramatic and so but interesting and fascinating. Interesting and fascinating the way she handled problems.
Did you solve problems like that in your life going through? You're an ordained minister, and you were, as I said earlier, giving lectures on the international circuit. Were you solving problems or feeling any of this during that time when you were working?
I was, to a certain degree, yes.
You call her a Renaissance woman, which was hundreds of years ago,
right,
with a long list of firsts.
Indeed.
She was the first queen.
Yes.
And then she was the first to be thought of as being, to be up for canonization.
Yes, she is. The Catholic Church is moving her through the process of canonization.
Even as we speak?
Even as we speak. You know, they examined 100,000 documents. And then out of that, they chose the documents and then compiled 30 volumes of material which was then placed in the archives of Rome for her canonization.
Did you get to see any of those?
No, because those, of course, that's all the Catholic Church. Their work is, and that was their work. But it's interesting to think that one person's life composed 30 volumes of documents, of change.
But of change.
Not nonsensical little things.
Well, you talked about paper money. She was the first with.
She developed the first paper money, and then of course you see
Why did she? Tell us. I thought that was interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, because you see gold and silver and then some of the copper coins were very heavy. She liked to move things quickly. She didn't like a carriage. Her horse was faster. And so when she needed to have money moved from Seville to Cordoba to here to there, the horses were quite slow. And of course, they were very bunglesome. And you could move more money quicker. And the horses would not be so tired. And so she developed that system.
And
so
she came up with that.
Efficiency. That lady was so organized. I mean, she organized everything, and she was so efficient. It was the efficiency part of it.
She expected you to follow proper protocol, and she really prescribed the social dictum of the day.
She prescribed, her court became the haughtiest, and when she was the queen, it was definitely the haughtiest. But the protocol which she and Ferdinand established was the protocol with which the rest of the courts throughout Europe did follow, which England and France and Germany, and they followed the strict protocol. I mean, it was, on one level, on the social level, very difficult to get to see the Queen, but very easy to see her If, on the other hand, you had a different kind of a problem, that you could come before her every Friday afternoon at her court of law.
I see. And then in keeping with the other courts, I guess they followed course with commissioned jewels and haute couture.
Absolutely, and followed from, because, you know, her wardrobe for her daily activities was simple. But when it came to her court, it was the most glittering, and her jewels were legendary. And I think that the two of the things with which she really invested in that reflected Isabella was books and jewels.
I think one other thing that was interesting is, as you point out, and we don't have too much time left, the Highway Patrol. She was the mother of the Highway Patrol.
She did. She wanted her people to be safe. I'll tell you, she gathered a group of men with the fastest horses, and robbery was very prevalent there. Somebody would rob somebody, and there would be a sound of a horn. And when that was called the Santa Hermandad, or the Holy Brotherhood, when they heard the horn, they saddled up their horses and they started racing. And they captured them.
And the other thing, besides the Highway Patrol, I thought the other similarity you said was the Red Cross.
Oh, yes. She was the first European monarch to put hospitals on her battlefields. And you know, it was 300 years later before Europeans thought about it and established the Red Cross. But she established it in the middle of the 1400s, and it was the middle of the 1800s. It took 300 years for that idea to catch up.
And legal counsel for the poor?
Public defender system. She established a public defender system in her courts of law. The poor who had to come before her courts were represented by legal counsel and paid for by her government.
And that specialization, when you talked about her mother being mentally ill, she opened a hospital for the mentally ill?
She built a hospital especially for the mentally ill, and of course that's the first in specialized medicine.
Well, she was fabulous, wasn't she?
She truly was. She is, I mean, her life today, if we could just unfold it and everybody just read about it. Women today, you know, we have faxes and televisions and telephones and cars and airplanes. She had her horse and she had her pen. And what she accomplished with that, what we women can accomplish today with all that is at our fingertips, it can truly be phenomenal.
Well, I don't think we can say anything else, Elizabeth. I wanted to talk to you forever, but with that, you said it so beautifully that I'm going to thank you for being with us, and I'm going to thank all of you for being with Joan Quinn, etc., and we'll see you next time.